It's therapy again. Today is the 9th of March, and I'm going to keep pressing pause until he arrives. Hello.
Crystal Jean.
The Alpha Beta Queen.
That's your middle name?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I gotta send you this link. I thought I had it, but I don't.
Alrighty.
Are you at your mom's still?
Yeah, I'm in my sister's room now, so I don't get interrupted.
Okay. Does your sister live with your mom?
Yeah. She took the spare room that I was planning on taking if I should leave. Okay, so this is I don't know if I don't know if I need to worry about it, so maybe I won't worry about it. My husband was trying to get a hold of Tiffany today. They won't release him unless they can talk to his psychiatrist, I guess. So we tried calling Lifeline several times today to try to get a hold of someone, but they didn't answer, so we kept leaving messages. But that's my husband's problem. I'm not going to try to fix it for him.
Does he have Tiffany's email address?
I do.
That's usually, yeah, because that's usually the way. Tiffany just actually texted me.
Did she?
About another client. Yeah, about another client.
Because he doesn't have access to his phone or email. He's using their phone.
Oh, okay.
But I have her email, so I guess I could say.
Yeah, I mean, you could ask her to contact, I think you have an ROI on file, because I've had you fill one out for Jim.
Yeah.
I don't know if Jim's had you fill one out for him, but you know how they get weird about that stuff.
Okay.
Is he ready to, is he wanting to get out of there?
Yeah, he's been wanting to since Thursday last week. But he went from voluntary to involuntary because of the whole gun situation, and they're dragging their feet, and different people are telling him different things, and he's just upside down and he doesn't know what to do. And I got a hold of his supervisor this morning because he didn't have their phone number to tell work that he's still not able to come to work, you know. And his supervisor said that he can email me FMLA paperwork. Well, I told Jim to tell the doctor that if they don't want to let him go to get back to work, then they're going to need to sign this FMLA paperwork. And sure enough, doctor wants to release him 9 a.m. tomorrow. And so Jim talked to the caseworker about what the doctor said, and the caseworker's like, oh, it's not that quick. We got to get a hold of your psychiatrist and your therapist and all that, blah, blah, blah. So that's why he was really frantically trying to get a hold of Tiffany today so that maybe he could get home by 9 a.m. tomorrow, or at least get the process started.
I could reach out to Tiffany and Lola and just give them a heads up.
Yeah.
So that they're aware that you guys are trying to contact them.
And maybe they already are because we left messages, but I don't really understand how it works because he doesn't have access to email. you know? So he'd have to really coordinate that whole thing with where he's at. And I really am trying not to fix it for him as my codependent self. That's my...
I know you're not. I know. But I know it is a concern of yours too. So
I think what really concerns me is I'm going to have to figure out how to pay rent April 1st all by myself. And I haven't had to pay rent in a very, very long time. And Jim's running out of PTO. And if they don't get him back to work, he's not going to have any money for our kids either, for the electric and the water and the... So I can't support both of us in a completely different household, and I need him to get back to work so he doesn't... So that he can keep the lights on for the kids, so he can keep feeding the kids when they're with him, you know?
Sure.
Okay, so I just got an email back from Tiffany. Ooh. I did just speak to Dr. Pater, and he said he will be discharged tomorrow. I will see him next week. Now, that's the doctor that was hoping it would be discharged tomorrow, but the social worker told him no. But maybe, whatever. I'll let them figure that out.
I think doctor overrides social worker.
Okay, so, I
think
actually
they just want to know that he has
care set up.
Is prescribing medications to him.
Right.
And an appointment schedule.
Right.
Just for their own peace of mind. And honestly, Crystal, a lot of this is about liability too.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
As much as I'd like to say this is about their deep concern, sometimes it's about their concern for themselves too.
Honestly, that's the first thing I thought about when he told me that they put handcuffs on him and did a court order to get evaluated before he's released. I'm like, well, that's good, because if they didn't do all their, crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's, and they knew he had guns and he went home to his wife who just left him, and what kind of facility would let that happen,
Right, and that's probably was one of their concerns.
Right.
Not just self-harm, but also
harm of others.
Harm of others, right.
Right. So I was really happy to hear that they didn't just let him go because he wanted to go. So that made me feel safe, that he was in a safe place.
Yeah.
And I was able to get my stuff out and get me out and get the kids out. And I was able to do it safely, not only for my mental health, but also for my physical health, because I was working like a horse and my stupid knee's still recovering. So I was able to take a breath and actually calm down and stop being so concerned about him coming home any second, especially over the weekend, where that could have been my big chunk of time to get stuff done. But because I had this, he's not getting out this weekend, I'm going to take a minute here. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to breathe, and I was able to get centered so many times because of that.
And then now, when he does get out, he'll be back to work. So he needs to be working.
Right.
For his own mental well-being.
And he wants to be. He likes his job. Yeah. I actually canceled my appointment with Tiffany. It was supposed to be for this morning, and I canceled it when they sent me the text to remind me. Because I haven't been taking my ADHD medication, and I haven't even been taking my depression medication. And that wasn't intentional to stop, but because of everything that's happened, the transition of all the medications, the forgetfulness, I don't know where the medications are right now. I've pretty much just stopped, which is normal for me after so long.
How have you been feeling off of the medication?
Well, what really sucks is that nothing this week has been normal. So I can't really give myself an accurate self-assessment based on my baseline, because nothing's normal. I don't have Jim to bring me down. I feel extremely happy because I'm free and I'm making decisions on my own. I don't feel depressed. I don't feel like I'm unfocused. Like, I feel like I'm back to my... Okay, basically, I always had a hard time staying on pills when I was working away from home, because being away from home and going into work every day and having people and making decisions at work and being this autonomous person for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, I felt really good. And it didn't make sense to me why I was taking medication just to be at home on the weekends with my husband, just to deal with him at night. You know what I'm saying? So the drastic difference between the two made me feel like I'm only medicating the marriage. I really don't think I need this, because when I'm at work, I'm fine. But then COVID happened and I had to be stuck home most of the day, all day, without my balance, without my autonomy, you know.
Well, we talked, I think very early in our treatment together, but there was a huge environmental factor here for you.
And I knew that, and I just couldn't get anybody else to see that, you know.
Well, I saw it, but and I know that. Like, I know that you've been with other therapists, and they haven't always seen that. And to be honest with you, I've brought up your case in clinical supervision in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and my clinical supervisor steered me away from it being environmental.
Really?
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess, standard protocol in a way for therapy where, it's the whole idea of, we can't fix her husband. Her focus has to be on herself. But there's still, to me, like, I've always known that there was a huge environmental factor. Now, I didn't have anything to compare that with. And see, that's part of the dilemma with therapy, is I've only known you in this environment.
Right.
So I didn't really have much. It would be different, like, if I knew you from, years ago, and then I also knew you from in the marriage, and I could see the difference. So, but the way I see it too is, like I said last night or yesterday, that you're the expert on your own life, and you know yourself, and you know what this situation has done to you, and that has to be considered. Not to say that everything's going to be perfect now, but I think that that's a huge factor.
I agree completely, because somebody asked me how I feel about being out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. I'm actually making decisions on my own for the first time without wondering what Jim's going to feel or think about this, and this,
Right.
At the same time, it's hella scary, because now I don't have him to blame for the decisions I'm making, or him to blame for the decisions I don't make, So it's like, now it's all on me, and I'm having to learn accountability 1000% more than I ever have before, because now it all rests on my shoulders. And that's kind of a scary thought, because it's like, wow, I'm 18 now. Now I get to be an adult. Now I don't have mom or dad to blame for me not being able to do what I always wanted to do, or Jim to blame. So it's actually just really funny to go through that. I also told my mom, because she was taking all this credit for helping me get out and being patient and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I want to let you know something, though. Something you kept saying to me that really probably kept me in it longer than it probably should have was, Crystal, you can be happy in any environment that you choose to be. You get to decide how you want to grow in your own environment. No matter where you are, you can choose what happiness level. If you raise your vibrations, you can affect those around you. So that kind of mind frame and that kind of thinking was almost like challenging me to think of how I can affect him and help my environment be more peaceful and help my environment be more happy. And I worked it. I worked it as hard as I could, but I was also not being true to myself in those times. I was being extra, like being turned, like I was being robotically programmed the entire time. Okay, how do I get him to be happy? This is what I got to do.
Yeah. That mentality almost lends itself to the idea of relying on your defense mechanisms to fix the problem. And we all know those defense mechanisms can end up turning on us. Right? And that's kind of what's happened with you.
Well, it's also in a gaslighting situation where I was gaslighting myself. I was minimizing my feelings, and I was minimizing my pain, and I was trying to talk myself out of what was really going on, and I was in denial, stuck even further, like putting my head in the sand and only focusing on what I wanted to see, and that's dangerous.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to say to you is, you know, you're going to go through an adjustment period. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is not easy.
Right.
Okay. It's a step that you're taking for your own mental health and well-being, right? I think it's a positive step, but it's not going to be a cakewalk, and we both know that.
Right.
I'm not saying that to try to concern you or scare you, but the reason I'm saying that is because I don't want you to confuse the adjustment issues that you might have. Like you talked about, now you know you're having to pay rent, and you know there's more responsibility, and it is going to be a bit of an adjustment for you, and it's not going to be, you know, easy all of the time, right? But I don't want you to confuse those issues with the adjustment, because it'll increase some anxiety. It could cause some, you know, additional stress. I don't want you to confuse that with, oh, I'm still dealing with crap even though I'm out of this relationship, because that's gonna be normal for you to experience some of that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want you in your mind to label that as, oh, I still am emotionally unregulated. Oh, I'm still struggling with some personality disorder.
Right.
Struggling with bipolar, whatever it might be. It's going to be normal. It's going to take a little bit of time for you to get acclimated to the new normal.
Right.
So don't get frustrated with that.
Give myself grace and allowance to figure it out. And I think that's really great advice, because I don't see myself becoming emotionally dysregulated. I actually can visualize myself being more capable now, and I keep comparing it to the darn butterfly, because in that cocoon I was isolated and shut myself off and just only relied on these little things that were supporting me to create my wings and to feel better about myself. And I don't know, it became this thing where every time I questioned leaving, I had to weigh the pros and cons. Okay, I can either have it hard by myself with all this rent, blah, 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 or, you know, I could have it hard here, which we already know what that's like. So why don't we take a chance and do what we got to do to survive that hard life? Because I bet you it won't be nearly as trapped feeling as relying on someone to help me make this life better. I'd rather rely on myself and figure it out by myself. And so I almost felt like I traded my soul for free rent by living with Jim.
Yeah, and what it is it's you know, it's the chaos you can control,
right,
versus the chaos you can't control.
Exactly.
And now it's going to be chaotic, but you, instead of looking at this as like, oh, now it's all on me. Oh, now I have to be responsible. I have to be accountable.
Right.
All that is true, but the healthy way to look at it is now all of the stress and the chaos is within my control to manage.
Right. And it was my choice too. I deliberately chose to have rent to pay rather than living with somebody. I deliberately chose to have these challenges so that I could be proud of my successes. I deliberately chose the location that I was at with the high rent that it was, because I wanted my children to give access. I wanted that first floor. I wanted that brand new apartment feeling. Like, I deliberately made these choices knowing it was going to be hard, because I knew myself so well to know that if I made any part of my decision somewhat temporary or somewhat easy on myself, I wouldn't want so badly to prove myself wrong, or to succeed in what I wanted. Does that make sense? Like, I didn't limit myself. I kept my ceiling really high so that I could keep growing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'm excited to see, how you progress through this. I know it's not going to be easy. You kind of have to know going in that there is going to be some challenges. But you're a strong woman. Like, you can get through this stuff, and you do have support. I mean, you have a mother that's supportive. I know that can have its own issues sometimes, right? As with any, parent relationship. But you're not all by yourself.
Right.
Okay? And life, I don't think life was ever meant to be lived all by ourselves. So don't feel like it's a weakness to rely on support from people.
Right. I actually learned that really well when I was studying the Pavlov's pyramid theory. Because you got to have your community first before you can really become an individual. And because I didn't feel like an individual, I felt like I was dependent on Jim. I felt like I was dependent on my parents. And then, like everything about my situation, I knew that if I didn't start relying on the right community, I would always be relying on Jim as my community. And so my community, I thought, was like those friends that I thought was going to help me through this. But when I started seeing their pull of what they wanted me to do, what they expected me to do, and the way they would talk to me, I'm like, that's not the kind of community that I want. I want the kind of community where I can say, I said that last night, the advice you gave me about how if I have a small window of what I'm allowed to say in front of people, then I'm not going to feel like I can talk to them. And so when I told my mom that, and I told my sister that, and I told a couple friends that, I said, I really appreciate that I can come to you with anything, because if you have an expectation of what you think this is supposed to look like, I will only feel like I can talk to you about that small window of things. So let me struggle with this, if you don't mind me saying, hey, I'm having some jonesing from June today, or I want to make him happy today, and I know that's not what I want, but at the same time, I'm like a sponsor, right? How they're supposed to be there for you to talk you through it. Yeah.
I mean, you and I have looked at this kind of in the light of as it being an addiction, and it makes perfect sense to look at this time, of adjustment and leaving and starting things out on your own as almost a recovery.
Right.
It makes perfect sense. Remember when we did kind of like a relapse prevention plan, one of the things we talked about was having anchors in your life, things that stabilize you and keep you consistent, right? Things that no matter what chaos happens, you always know that those things will be there and those things will be stable and consistent for you. And, your family support is one of those things. Your mom is one of those things. Your job is one of those things. But part of that, having those anchors is maintaining them, making sure that they don't become part of the problem.
Right.
So if you do have, friends in your life that you look to for support, and they start causing more chaos in your life than they are able to support you, you got to reevaluate that and say, is this an anchor or is this a high-risk situation now for me? Right? So maintaining those stabilizing forces and making sure that they're actually doing their job is going to be an important piece to this for you. Because we all know that, things can become chaotic sometimes. And, just making sure that those are healthy, stabilizing forces. I think your kids are one of those anchors.
It can also be a high-risk situation.
Yeah.
My son has a lot of...
Anything can turn into that.
My son has a lot of similar tendencies to his dad when it comes to anxiety and wanting things a certain way, rigidity, and I try to fix it for my son in a way that makes him feel more comfortable with the situation. And last night he was having a meltdown, but his meltdowns are very silent, and he shuts down and he's kind of like just freaking out. And I got after him in a firm way and I said, Matthew, I can't read your mind. You need to read your words and you need to communicate. Take a deep breath. If you need to leave the room, come back when you're ready to talk. But I'm not going to try to fix this for you and figure this out for you. I can't read your mind. You're going to have to talk about it. And he came to me later after he calmed down and he says, okay, I'm going to bed now. And he just stood right there, kind of like still in a bad mood. And I go, okay. And he goes, I still love you though. And he gives me a big hug because he knows that he needs to work on a couple things that lets people know what he needs and communicate what he's asking, not just expect everyone to part the waters for him so that he can feel better. And I know that's what my husband did, is he started throwing his fit or throwing things or whatever he did as a child. His mom just catered and gave him what he wanted because she knew him inside and out.
Right. So it shows you kind of the evolution of that type of a personality.
And that's what I saw in my son at an early age, developing these things. And you can say it's nurture versus nature, or you could say that it's hereditary, or maybe he just watched his dad because that's the man of the house. In either case, once my son was able to get that diagnosis of the autism spectrum, it made me go, ah, that makes sense, because his dad and then his grandfather is nothing like Matthew or his dad. His grandfather is very isolated, quiet, keeps to himself, doesn't communicate, doesn't show emotion, kind of checks out. And if I've ever seen him mad, he gets mad and leaves the room. He doesn't boss his way around like Jim's mom does. So I do think there's a combination of how it's evolved based on what they see.
Yeah, and people with personalities like what Jim has, typically they surround themselves with people who become addicted to trying to accommodate that behavior.
Right.
And what that does, and you know this, it enables the behavior to continue. And then there are people that usually there are people that aren't addicted to accommodating that behavior, and they just let the behavior go, or they get upset by it. And usually those are the people who, like for Jim, that behavior won't escalate for those people, because there's no desire to have that person accommodate them, because they know they won't.
Right.
So the behavior will usually stop in those, like for example at work. Like think about, I don't know if you've ever seen Jim at work, but I would imagine that whoever he works with isn't going to accommodate that type of behavior.
He used to work for Banner for like 14 years.
Oh, okay.
And he held his tongue as much as possible, but when he didn't like what was going down, he was very blunt, and he pushed his way around, and he made enemies basically with supervisors, and his reputation wasn't the best, to the point where they isolated 3 troublemakers into one hospital for IT, and they worked there for 2 years, and they kept getting written up for random things that just didn't make sense. And then they split them all up, and within 6 months they had these layoffs, and 3 people had to go. And which 3 people do you think they fired? It was the 3 troublemakers that were blowing whistles or just demanding their way or not being team players, or whatever the 3 people did that caused them to have bad blood with and so he even told me of a woman that used to work in support desk, and this was a month ago, and she's a woman working in IT, which is already a minority sort of situation. She's black, she's big, so she's not athletic in a way that makes her able to do the job very quickly, right? And he has such a disdain for people in the service desk, because that's the first level before the next, because they don't do their job, they just pass the buck all the time, right? So when she got promoted from that job to where he works, he's voicing his concerns about service desk, but instead of doing it professionally, he says, they're all a bunch of fucking idiots and they're stupid and don't do it. And she's like, this is my people, you know, and he's like, yeah, then that means you're a fucking idiot, or something like really derogatory. I don't care about the race, but just saying that to a woman is like demeaning. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's deplorable. I wrote that down on a post-it note and stuck money behind it and put it in my jar as one of the million reasons why I can't stand this man, is he feels like he has the right to be blunt everywhere he goes, even in a work environment where you think he'd be on his best behavior. And it's like, no, you know? So it's like these little reminder things that just make me go, oh. So when you asked me about work, those are the two things I wanted to mention.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the bottom line is people either are accommodating to that and try to fix it and placate, or they just
stay away.
Yeah. And usually people like that try to surround themselves with people that will, you know, kind of accommodate that behavior.
Something else I was going to mention, two things I was going to say. Oh, he got a diagnosis from a psychiatrist today who did an evaluation.
What?
Bipolar 2 disorder.
Bipolar 2, huh?
And I know I told you about the conversation I had with his ex in January and how she said he was diagnosed with bipolar and refused to take meds. And that was the first time I heard that he ever had anything like that. But I also know that bipolar can also be often misdiagnosed with borderline, because I don't see the manic. I don't see the risky behavior. I don't see that sort of thing. I see the fear of abandonment. I see the outbursts. I see more borderline, if I could diagnose somebody, which I can't. Not yet. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's interesting. Bipolar 2, huh?
Yeah, because they mentioned something about not having manic something. I really don't know.
So it just goes back and forth with anxiety and depression, but no mania.
And because, okay, here's how also I see the difference, because I wish I could talk to these people that think it's bipolar. Borderline personality is usually situational with your relationships. Bipolar is like out of the blue hypermania, out of the blue depression, not really associated to something specific. Where his borderline seems to be surrounded around what I'm doing. Fear of abandonment, fear of abandonment, fear of abandonment. So if I'm about to go do something without his permission, or I get his permission and I want to do it anyway, he's going to go in his mind about all these ways I could abandon him, whether I do it by staring at someone or talking to someone or leaving him or whatever. So it's like, I don't think he has friends and stuff because I think he has such a fear of them forgetting about him, you know?
Yeah, and what happens with that is it's really a lot of reading into things and making assumptions.
Right. That's what I think he's got.
Yeah, becoming obsessed with, you know, what does that mean? You know, they did this, like with you, you know, she went to the swimming pool. You know, it's not just about going to the swimming pool. It's more. It's got to be more than that.
Right.
It's got, and what it is it's searching for things. It's almost like an addiction of searching for things that confirm what you already believe.
Like a hypervigilant to support your...
To support what you already believe. So they have no ability to look at the real evidence of, like, you know, the whole Socratic questioning, questioning your thoughts, challenging your thoughts.
Right.
Usually one of the steps to that is considering, is this evidence only evidence that supports what I already believe? Because that is one of the kind of tendencies of someone that's borderline.
And that's every time I try to ask him, is it possible that what you think and fear right now is not true? Oh, why don't you think so? Blah, 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 blah. And he's just so heightened and way off the rock, and it doesn't matter. That's why I can't just give all the freaking credit to his autism anxiety like he keeps thinking it is. It's like, no, I think there's something more to it. And you can't cure borderline with medication. So I think...
Does he go through deep, like, phases of depression for extended periods of time?
No. That's the part that just makes me go... He's not mania for no reason or depressed for no reason. He is reactive to what situation is at hand. And the situation at hand, if he's trying to stay within control, he needs to block himself into a room and do his coping strategies to get himself back to normal. And he could be fine within 5 minutes or 20 minutes or 2 days, depending on how badly he wants to get out of his stuff. But he's not depressed for long chunks of time. And here's the part that I can't stand about bipolar disorder is I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder back in the day because of the way I answered certain questions. But not, I think he's just answering questions and they're just fishing for something and they just give him a bipolar scale and they say, yep, looks like you got bipolar 2 disorder. Are they doing a borderline scale? Are they doing an autism scale? Are they doing anxiety scales? What scales are they doing to come up with these diagnoses? And plus, the human brain doesn't say, oh, I think I fit in this box. It could be a bunch of different things.
Yeah, it could be.
It's just one person's opinion on what bipolar looks like, and let's call it that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I get really angry about labels.
No, I agree with you with that. I don't think you need a label on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, dealing with each individual symptom that we know somebody has is the better solution rather than putting them in a box. Because usually, with every disorder, it's like, they have to meet certain criteria. And it'll be like they have to meet 5 out of the 8 or 9 possible criteria.
Right.
So there's a whole half of the criteria that they may not even meet just from the very beginning, And those 5 criteria could also be synonymous with another disorder.
And I think things overlap because our brain is going to just latch on to coping or latch on to reactions or latch on to, or maybe it is a chemical imbalance, but I really don't think you can change a jealous person's reactions with medication.
No, I don't think you can either. And usually the personality disorders, the one thing is there's no medication that can fix the personality disorder.
Right.
So it's not a chemical imbalance. It's a dysfunction in the way they perceive things.
Right. Which is why the exposure therapy and the DBT and the CBT and the stuff to actually work through hard things would be like, and coming up with a plan, an ABC plan. Okay, what's the hardest level here? If we're doing Mario Brothers, what's your Bowser level? What's the hardest thing for you to do? Okay, what's the easiest thing? Let's try these little steps, and then maybe we can go down Salt River tubing with Crystal and her mom one day. But not now. That's too high of a level for you and too high of a level for her, frankly. So
setting realistic, attainable goals. Starting slow, using the skills. It's very difficult with a personality disorder because usually the client gets caught up in other stuff and it's hard to continue to go back to the skills,
Right.
So somebody like Jim might come in and start going on about how you did this, and this, or we're watching a movie you shouldn't have been watching, or you went to the pool, or when what should be being worked on is the skills, right? To change your perspective, into something that's a healthier perspective.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know Jim well enough to make a diagnosis, but I would assume it's somewhere in the personality disorder
I want to maybe ask you what you think about this idea. If I brought my mom in for just a second, I think it would be informational documentation, interesting for you. If you got to get her perspective on the type of relief or personality changes she's seen since I've left him, because you said something about not knowing me before. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I'll have to send you a collateral for her to be in there.
Oh, okay. Because I know we did something with my husband and my kids, and so I didn't know if it was something
well, we did
verbal.
A collateral for Jim. Hang on, let me check this out here.
I didn't know if it was verbal or whatnot.
I think this collateral looks like a long thing. So it's going to go to the Matthew. Oh no, it's C.J. Wells.
Yeah. So you're sending it through the portal?
Yeah. Let me just. It's called informed consent for collaterals. And I just sent it to the portal.
Okay.
We got it in an email that.
Okay, so it says client name, that's me.
Yeah, and really what it is just, I think it's more informational for you guys, and then just some signatures. It's not a lot of stuff that you have to fill out. It's mainly informed consent information. And basically the gist of it is you're the client, your mom's not the client.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. She's in there in support of you. We're not trying to do anything to fix her, that type of thing.
Right.
Does it look complicated? It should just be some signatures at the bottom.
Yep. I got it here. I think I did it. So, if I submit, okay. You should
yeah, if
say
you
it now.
submit it, it should come back to me. There it is. I don't even know if it's...
It didn't even ask me about my mom.
Good. I'll sign it to her. Okay, so it was probably, it didn't even ask for her signature, huh?
Mary!
So it was probably the same one you signed anyway to have Jim in.
It looks different. Yeah, it doesn't look the same.
Okay. Alright.
Hey, Mom!
So yeah, you can grab her if you want.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay.
Mom! Come here. Let me stir this. Okay, stir. She making dinner. It smells so good.
She making?
I think it's stuffed bell peppers.
Ooh, sounds good. I think I might be coming to your house for dinner.
My mom's house, yeah. I don't have anything in my fridge yet. My daughter grabbed the cream cheese packet from her school lunch out of her backpack with the bagel, and she put it in there and says, "Here you go, Mom." So this is my therapist, Brian.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I've got a dog that wants to dominate me.
Oh, yeah.
What's up?
I've got 2 dogs.
Yeah? What kind of dogs?
Well, I have one that we just got one as a rescue dog. I don't even know what breed he is. But then we have a King Charles Spaniel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
I got stuff in my hair.
Yeah.
So I was telling Brian, Brian was telling me that he said that it's going to be hard in adjustment and stuff between, so not to take my adjustment period too seriously and be hard on myself, because that's not a baseline of where I'm going to be someday.
Don't beat yourself up ever.
Right. And so he said that if he knew what I was like before my environment that I left, then he might be able to see. And I was like, well, maybe my mom can tell you a little bit about what I don't know if I'm asking a question.
One thing Crystal and I have talked about, because, you know, she's been in therapy for a while, and she's had multiple therapists over the past few years.
Right.
And a lot of the times, her and the environmental things of being in that marriage were not really considered as part of her problem, what was causing some of her symptoms. And I was just telling her that part of the reason for that is the therapist usually doesn't know how things were before that marriage.
Right.
I kind of had an idea that a lot of what was going on with her was caused by the situation she was in.
Well, yeah, I don't think her self-esteem was ever big. Neither was, good. Neither was mine. I think she was just kind of going off the patterns of what kind of I went through. But I know she was conditioned to care about somebody like this, where I wasn't, because her father was so much like her husband, which it was just like, wow. That's probably why you were attracted to him. Thought she could heal it, and I thought I could too, because I could see that when I married her dad, and he had 6 personalities and 6 different names. And I left him when she was 6, and we shared the kids, but she took over my job of making sure he's okay.
Yeah.
7.
So.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's just
basically he's wanting to, I guess, if you can speak to what you said earlier about how much happier I've been since I left him.
Oh my God. It's not just seeing it, but you can feel it too. Just a whole lot of burden off of her. And I've just seen her sucked in this dark hole for so long, and it's like, I can give you a rope, but she wouldn't come out, you know? She had to do it on her own, and she had to decide how, and she had to get her emotions out of there, because she used to run to her bedroom with scissors and threaten to commit suicide all the time, which mostly was just a cry for stop. Will you stop acting like this, because you're driving me crazy? So
yeah, and I don't know, like, because here's the thing, like, a lot of times, you know, Crystal's been diagnosed with multiple things from different therapists.
Right.
But all based on the way she was behaving and acting within that relationship.
Right.
Right. So you see the suicidal tendencies, you see anxiety, you see depression, you see mood swings. So it's real easy for a therapist to say, oh, bipolar disorder.
Right.
Or something, personality disorder. And so it's just, for me, I'm just curious to know how she was before the relationship. And I know it's very early now, but I'm just going to be interested to see if a lot of these symptoms start to go away the longer she's out of the relationship, I guess.
She was just a take charge person. She took charge. She ran the show, and she did get a good job with her first husband, making sure they were on top of everything because they were both fresh out of high school.
Yeah.
She managed the Taco Bell and her brother while he worked there. She was, the matriarch of my kids because, she took care of things when I couldn't. And it was like I was always struggling from, paycheck to paycheck to job to husband to husband. So it was like I wasn't able to be there the way I wished I could have been.
Right. No, I know.
But she took charge, and you see what the oldest compared to the middle child and the youngest. And you want to go stir my food?
Yeah, I'll go stir.
You got a lot of kids too.
I raised 7, but 5 of them are mine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say I raised 7 children and 4 husbands.
And how many dogs along the way?
How many what?
How many dogs along the way?
Oh, well, the dogs didn't really start until my last marriage, and it lasted for 20 years. And part of that reason was because I did not want to do it again. So I was doing what she did and enduring. But you really do seem to, if you don't figure out yourself and your own values or even what you want, which, I grew up in a strict religion that didn't give me that opportunity. They told me who to be and told me what I wanted, that it took years for me to realize that I got to figure this shit out because now I've been out of the relationship for 11 years and I was never out of a relationship. I just slide one to the next,
And that's what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to just run to someone to save me. And I didn't want her to save me because I felt like I would just be relying on someone else to get me out of my own stuff. And I'm like, I got to get strong enough here or I'll never be strong enough on my own.
Well, and my religion taught me that I couldn't survive without a man. That was, I was supposed to be the mom, I'm supposed to be with the kids, and I'm supposed to find a good man that can help take care of me and stuff like that. So, I wasn't given a lot of go out and have a career,
And because you moved up here and did it on your own, I was all, that's what I want. I want to do this on my own. I don't want to wait till I'm 60 to do it. I want to do it on my own now.
As much as you wish you could someone could rescue, or I figured out how to rescue myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and, Crystal, you still, as much as you don't want to be dependent, your family is there for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with relying on help and support from your family during this time.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm just glad that I'm able to help, that I put myself in a strong position to where I can do this now.
Right.
I can, at times, 5-6 years ago, I was on a bike with $6 to my name, and no home. So, except to go with the ex-husband, and I didn't want to do that, so.
Right.
I think that's what I draw my strength from, is watching how she could go from this, DUI that forced her on a bike to force her to reinvent herself. I'm like, you know what? If my mom can reinvent herself every freaking time she falls down, I can do it too. I don't know why.
Absolutely.
But there was a whole bunch of stuff that led to a DUI too.
Oh, right.
That was crashing and burning.
And I didn't even want to even tippy-toe near that substance because if I did, I knew that would just make it 10 times harder. So it's like, I need to do this without that.
Well, and I wasn't a drinker until my 40s with my husband, and so I didn't. Fourth husband. In my 40s.
Because she didn't want to leave him.
That road too.
And you don't think you're ever going to have a problem if you've never had one in the past. I wasn't a partier. I got married at 19. I started having babies. There was, no alcohol or drugs in the Mormon world at all. So.
And the only reason why she started drinking is because she didn't want to get divorced and start all over.
It was the Band-Aid that kept me there. Whatever.
Haven't you watched The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City?
I don't care for that BS. I am not one of those superficial type women. And, you know, just to be around him as a woman, it's just like you're just rolling your eyes and going, no, thank you. I don't want this party. I'm too much of a realistic, down to earth, you know, I got to communicate that way.
Right.
Not how long.
I'm proud of you, Crystal. I think you're doing really well.
Thank you. Yeah, he's got a lot of kids too. Did he tell you?
How many kids you got?
I have 6.
Oh boy, yeah, you're in my party. Yeah. But mine are, it's a different world now that I don't have a husband or kids, so now they're all grown up and it's a whole different ball game.
And he has a lot of religious conditioning too.
Oh yeah, what religion?
So I was raised in a Christian church, but it was extremely legalistic. You know, so you remember the movie Footloose, where you couldn't dance? It was similar to that.
Oh, well, it's close to Mormon, but we could dance.
Yeah, very close. Absolutely. Yeah, it was. But I was always raised to believe that, you know, you had to be perfect. And if you weren't, then God was mad at you.
And you were raised to believe that you were born a sinner, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't believe that Mormons teach that. They teach you're a child of God and you're going to make God proud and all that.
Well, except when you get 8, you're supposed to get baptized, and then from there on, you're on your, you know, if you do anything wrong, that's on you, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought it was more of a positive message than some other
It's just
Christians.
sad that families have to have a condition to, like, a religion or some rules that we're going to disown you if you're not following all this stuff. And luckily, my sisters and brothers don't disown me. I mean, if they're talking about me, it's behind my back. So it's like, I don't have to hear it. Nobody's in my face to change back. And I don't have to live around them because they're all in Utah. So
she's number 9 of 10.
Yeah, I'm number 9. So you get lost in the crowd when you're that far.
And we had 6 kids in my family growing up, too.
Wow.
So I come from a big family, and now I have a big family.
Yeah, if you're ever alone, it's not easy. Because now I have no children. It's like I'm always alone. I'm used to a big family and the noise.
You have grandchildren.
I have 8 grandchildren, but they don't live with me. Thank God my kids have been all capable of taking care of their children. And
somewhat, Christopher.
No, he's got it. But nobody's on drugs and on the street and screwing up that way.
Yeah, good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's good to talk to you.
You too.
Thank you, Mom. I turned down your
music
oven.
Oh, okay.
That way it just looked like it was boiling.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of cooking stuffed peppers.
He said he's coming over for dinner.
Oh, yeah, they're yummy. Yummy and good for you.
You see my shirt? It's the narcissist prayer.
Oh, I like that.
I told you about it, right? I found it online. That didn't happen.
I didn't know you got the shirt, though.
Yeah, I just got it, and I wore it my first day. I wore it when he was yelling at me and throwing things, and I put it on as soon as he did all that, and I'm like, there you go. That's the first time I'm wearing it, and I wore it to Tucson, like my warrior outfit, you know?
I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. I feel like I am capable more so now than ever before, and I think I will have bouts of doubt in my ability, but I think I have been talking to myself and my noodles for so long, right? That it's all familiar what doubts come up for me. It's all familiar what I struggle with. And I had to consistently keep getting myself out, you know, Wednesday through Sunday when I didn't have Brian to talk to. You know, like I have been trying to get myself on a consistent self-esteem boost. And that's where it's like, my mom even says, Crystal, you seem like you're doing really well. What do you need therapy for? And I go, it's a reminder of what I need to keep working on. And it helps me go, okay, I'm on the right track. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me I'm on the right track. And if I feel like if I feel like I'm struggling, then I'm like, okay, I see Brian on Monday. I'm going to be okay because I got to see him on Monday.
You're telling yourself, you know, those positive affirmations are going to be important, you know, and design them for what you need. You know, I can do this on my own. I'm a strong woman. I'm independent.
Right. I don't have him holding me back anymore. Blah, blah, blah. There was a really beautiful saying, and then the last thing I'll talk about, and I posted this as my thing. And it says, come on, here it is. It says, no one understands you the way you understand yourself. The people who judge you don't know the mountains you've had to climb or the courage persistence, and strength it took to climb them. They do not know the passions that excite you or what keeps you rising every morning. I hope one day you learn to never suffer over other opinions and flourish in your own self-belief. Because that's what's really holding me back at this point, is wondering what his mom thinks, or wondering what Jim thinks, or wondering what other of my friends think and stuff like that. And I'm like, only I know my story the way I know my story. And
there's matter.
Right.
None of that matters. What matters is what you think.
Right.
And that's all that matters.
And if I need to check in with myself to figure out an answer because I don't know what I think, then I feel like my depersonalization process of figuring out, okay, where is this thought coming from? Where does this noodle, what's this noodle's trauma that keeps coming up? We need to really address that and hold that and understand that. I feel like I've worked so hard at figuring out where all these things come from so that I can heal them from the inside. Now, of course, I'm not done yet, but I don't think I will be done until I've been in my own environment without that other stuff.
Well, yeah, because you don't know, I mean, you don't know. You've spent the last many years being somebody that you're not.
Right.
And so you need to find out who you are again.
Right.
And so you may not know what you think about certain things, but you'll figure that out. Yep. That's the self-actualization that you really need to start thriving towards now that you're out of this, or that you're on a different path. Is the self-actualization. You know, you need to figure out who you are apart from him.
Yeah, Jim said something like that the other day. He says, I need to start trusting that you know who you are when I'm not watching. I need to start trusting that you know what kind of woman you want to be in a marriage, in a relationship. Because just because I ask you to follow this, this, and this doesn't mean that you want to. I need to start trusting that you have your own set of values that you already come to the table with. And I'm like, wow, that's exactly what I needed to do and you needed to trust in. But he had a hard time even understanding that. He is becoming more self-aware and more insightful with what's going on, but he's so not there yet. And I'm not even holding space or waiting for him to figure it out. I just need to work on me.
Yeah, just work on you.
Yeah.
And you know, you can reevaluate all that at a later time. But
okay.
You're doing good.
Thank you. She's a character, isn't she? My mom.
What's that?
My mom's a character, isn't she?
Yeah, she's cool though.
Yeah, she's pretty down to earth. Yeah. I like a lot of parts about her that I just, you know, she helps me see that what's right. It's not about good versus bad or. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It's not about that at all. So.
Cool.
All right, well, reach out to me during the week if you need anything.
Okay. And I don't like texting because the texting doesn't seem to work, right? It just says okay every time I text. It's like an automatic reply. Okay. Did you freeze? Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, send it through the portal. I'm not sure why the other one automatic replies like that. I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah. Okay.
So, all right.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
You too. Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye. It makes me feel good to record these sessions just for me and not for an audience. So if I happen to share this later, you're pretty darn lucky because I am not talking to you. I'm not sharing with you. I'm sharing with myself. And maybe you got something out of this. Maybe you didn't. Either way is a-okay. I'm just doing this for myself. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye now. Crystal over and out.